Welcome to the second half. I think I shall start the second half as I started the first half with a couple of tunes. I made a tune called a Milgi D, which means... Oh, Milgi. Milgi is what this place is called. Anyone know what Milgi means? I know you would know, I think. Anyone else know what Milgi means? He does as well. Milgi means greyhound. So a Milgi D is the black greyhound.
How can you be a black greyhound?
Now greyhounds are not all greyhounds are grey. They do come in different colours.
You're just saying that.
Yes, because no. The reason why it's good to have a black greyhound sometimes. There is a. There was. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you.
Black isn't a colour.
Black isn't
It's a shade.
Well, a very dark. The reason that you need a black greyhound sometimes is, well, there was a young lad who lived with his aged grandmother. I wasn't going to tell you this story, but I can tell you the story now because it just like gives the background to the black greyhound. He lived with his aged grandmother, and people used to they used to sort of talk about her. You know, they used to say things about her. They used to sort of think she was a bit odd, but anyhow. So they lived in a small holding. A small little house on a small holding. It was called Tirbach, which means small land, which just shows how small the small holding was. They were poor people. Poor people, didn't have a lot of money. And nearby there was a rich man who lived, and he had a greyhound. A grey greyhound, not a black greyhound. And he used to like hunting hares, but he didn't hunt for food because he was rich. He had plenty of money to buy food, but he just hunted for sport. And he would go for a walk with his greyhound, and if the greyhound started a hare, the hare would run. Well, the greyhound would run after the hare, and the man would run after them, and he enjoyed this. And I don't know if you've ever seen a dog chase a hare. I was walking a dog of mine once, and off the hare went, whoosh, and off the dog went, whoosh, and then the hare went, and it turned very, very sharply, whoosh, whoosh, and my dog went whoosh, and carried straight on. It was really comic. It was a very stupid dog. It was a lovely dog. I loved it. You know, it didn't. And then it stopped, and he looked round with this puzzled expression on his face. Thought, where's the hare gone? Now, if you had a greyhound, the greyhound doesn't do that, because a greyhound, they call it a sight hound as opposed to other type of hunting dogs, are scent hounds. Very sharp eyes, runs very fast, of course, and if the hare turns very sharply, as hares do, the hound will turn. So your greyhound is your ideal hound for hunting a hare. But even with a greyhound, sometimes the hare gets away. So this man, he was going for a walk one day, and the young lad who lived with his grandmother turned up, appeared somewhere and said, "Oh, I see you're walking with a greyhound. Are you looking for a hare to hunt?" And the rich man said, "Yes." And the young lad said, "Well, in that next field, there's a hare. Just follow me." And they went there, and there was the hare. And the greyhound, whoosh, after the hare. The hare, off he went, and then the hare zigzagged and went this way, that way, that way. And the greyhound zigzagged and went this way, that way, that. And then in the end, the hare got away. And the man wasn't so bothered because it was the sport, it was the hunt that he enjoyed. He didn't have to hunt for food. So he was very grateful to the lad. He said, "Well, thanks for finding a hare for me. I enjoyed that run. I enjoyed that hunt, crossing the hare." He said, "I'll give you a shilling." And in those days, a shilling was a whole lot more money than it would be now. Well, and we don't have shillings. But in those days, so it wouldn't be legal tender. But we're talking a couple of 100 years ago, and this is like a poor lad, and that was handy to take home to his grandmother to buy some food. Exactly. Anyhow, another day, the man, he was walking, and once again the young lad appeared. He said, "Oh, I see you walking with your hound. There's a hare over there." "Oh, is there?" Off they go. The hound goes after the hare. Off the hare goes. The hare zigzags, goes this way, that way, this way, that way, and the hound's going this way, and they're running after it, and the man is calling out, "Get him, man, Key, get him, man." He's encouraging his hound, his dog, but the hare gets away. It was either too fast or too clever for that hound. But still, he'd enjoyed the chase, and he gave the young lad a shilling. A little while after that, he had a friend round to dinner, and afterwards they were smoking their cigar and drinking their brandy. And he was saying to the friend, he said, "You know what, funny thing's been happening. Sometimes I go for a walk with a hound, you know, and if I can see a hare, I enjoy coursing the hound, running after my hound as it chases a hare. And there's a young lad poor family, he lives with his aged grandmother, and he turns, well, it's happened more than once, he points out where there's a hare, and we chase that hare, my hound chases that hare, but the hare always gets away, and it almost feels like it might be the same hare every time. And his friend said, I'll tell you what, I think that's no ordinary hare. The rich man said, what do you mean no ordinary hare? And his friend said, well, get yourself a black greyhound. If you chase that hare, set a black greyhound on it, then maybe you will find out what I mean, no ordinary hare. So the rich man, he found a black greyhound. He located one somehow and he bought it. Not so common, a greyhound of that colour, but they do exist, whatever you might say, John. And he brought the black greyhound. He was going for a walk another time without the dog at all, and the young lad appeared and said, "Ah, sir," he said, "it's a pity you don't have your hound with you, because I did see a hare in the next field." And the rich man said, "Oh, never mind, I got a new hound. I'll just nip home." And he came back with the black greyhound, and the young lad looked a bit worried. Didn't look so happy. And the rich man said, "Come on, show us where the hare is." So he showed him, off went the hare, off went the black greyhound, and then the hare turned this way, that way, and it zigzagged, and the hound zigzagged, and it was going after it. And the gentleman was encouraging his greyhound, and he was calling out, "Derrimlan Keedy," which means, "Come on, black dog, get at Derrimlan." And the young lad was running with him, and he was calling out as well. He was calling out, "Derrimlan Mamgi." Now, the gentleman wasn't listening closely. He just thought he was calling the same thing. "Derrimlan Keedy, come on, black dog." But that's not what he was saying. He was saying, "Derrimlan, come on, Mamgi," which some of you have understood. It means grandmother. "Derrimlan Mamgi." 9. Come on, Granny. And, but the gentleman hadn't registered this. But anyhow, the hare twisted and turned and went this way, that way, and the hound was still after it, and the hare twisted and turned, and this hare couldn't shake off the black greyhound. And then eventually the hare was heading for Tirbach Cottage, where the young lad lived with his aged grandmother. And he headed straight for the little house, and the black hound was almost catching up with it, and then the hare jumped up to a window that was slightly open, and as it was about to get into the window, the hound caught up with it and grabbed its back leg, its left back leg, and it had the back leg in his teeth, and the blood was coming out, and the hare struggled, and then it got away, and it slipped into the house. So when the man, the owner of the greyhound, got up to the cottage, he just saw his hound was circling, going round and round, barking and howling, like the dog barked in the night. Barking it was. So the gentleman looked, the rich man, and he looked to see no sign of a hare. And then he knocked on the door of the cottage. No answer. Knocked again, no answer. Knocked, so this time he pushed the door open. And there, sitting by the fire, was the old lady. And her face was pale. She looked ill. She looked sick. And she was breathing deeply. She was panting, as if she'd just been running very fast. And she was panting, and she was panting. And then he saw that her left leg was bleeding. There was blood seeping through her dress and dripping onto the ground. And then he realised who or what the greyhound, the hare, had been. That the hare had been the old woman, that the old woman had been the hare. And he realised that the young lad's grandmother was a shape changer, was a woman with magic powers who could turn herself into a hare, and that's how the young lad had been earning himself a shilling. So to be in the presence of a woman with this power, well, she was looking up at him with terror, because she'd almost been killed by his dog, and she was panting and she was exhausted and she was looking pale, and he was looking at her with a little bit of nervousness and thinking, no, a woman like this I ought to respect and leave alone. And he was backing out of the door, but as he was backing out of the door, then the black hound came in, and the black hound went towards her, and then she stood up, even though it was with difficulty. She picked the poker from the fire and she struck the hound, and she said, "Get that hound out of here, Kerarki na masama, Kararki, get that dog out of here, get that dog out of here." And the black hound went out with its tail between its legs. And then she sat down, and the man left the little cottage and left her alone. Well, from that day on, well, she never she never walked properly again. She was lame. She had this injured left leg. And as to whether she ever turned herself into a hare, well, I don't suppose she did, because she would have been a lame hare. And certainly, whenever the rich man went walking with his hound, it never happened that the young lad came up to him to say, "Oh, I know where there's a hare in the next field you can hunt." So there's the story of the witch of Tierbach, who used to turn herself into a hare. Thank you.